Social mechanics and the art of the wobble. Welcome to my channel, Habit Compass. Today, we are unpacking a fascinating concept that I absolutely love because honestly, it completely changes the way we think about human interaction. In this video, we're going to take a hard look at exactly how we learn to connect with others and how we so often trap ourselves by trying to translate social theory into real-world confidence without, actually doing the physical work. I am so incredibly excited to walk you through this whole thing today, so let's just jump right in.
Okay, so let's kick this off with a question that might seem a little bit ridiculous at first glance. Can you win a bike race just by watching YouTube? Like, seriously, ask yourself that. Imagine someone who has literally never touched a bicycle in their entire life. They just sit at their computer, they binge watch hundreds of hours of high-definition videos on aerodynamics, they study the precise mechanics of bicycle gears, and they perfectly memorize the exact posture of Olympic cyclists. Do you honestly expect them to step outside, hop on a bike, and instantly win a race? Of course not. No way. We intuitively know that they wouldn't even make it past the starting line without completely falling over. Because physical skills, well, they absolutely require physical execution.
But here's where it gets really interesting. Think about how we completely abandon that exact same logic when it comes to human interaction. Why is it that we fully accept that riding a bike takes physical practice, yet we somehow expect to become this charismatic social butterfly just by reading a giant stack of self-help books on body language or communication? We kind of treat social skills as this purely academic exercise. We convince ourselves that if we just memorize the right opening lines or perfectly understand the psychology of a conversation, we're going to flawlessly execute it in reality. But the truth is, there is a massive, massive gap between passive learning and physical reality. So, the absolutely crucial point we have to internalize right now is this. Watching does not equal doing. It sounds super simple, right? But it's a trap almost all of us fall into at some point. Passive consumption is genuinely dangerous because it traps us in what psychologists call the illusion of knowledge. When you watch this brilliant, engaging video on how to be charismatic, your brain releases a hit of dopamine. You feel productive, you feel like, wow, I've really grown. You feel incredibly prepared for your next big social event. But you haven't actually taken any action. You've simply downloaded theoretical data without ever actually testing it against the friction of reality.
Let's actually walk through the literal journey of how this plays out in the real world. First, you're sitting comfortably at your desk watching a video of a bike. Feels pretty safe, right? Then you step outside and boldly mount a real, physical bicycle. And what happens next? Boom! Immediate disaster. You fall right over and hit the ground. Ouch! But eventually you pick yourself back up, you keep trying, and finally you're pedaling smoothly. Now, the absolute most important part of this entire sequence is the fall. You literally cannot skip the fall. Taking action immediately leads to a messy, awkward tumble way before any smooth pedaling can actually happen.
And that brings us to a core concept I really want to burn into your mind today, the wobble phase. This is that inevitable period of awkwardness and falling over that is strictly required for your brain to learn new patterns. We really need to completely reframe how we view failure in social situations. Because let's be honest, social failure hurts, doesn't it? It feels deeply, deeply personal. But when you try to make small talk and it just falls completely flat, or you tell a joke and you're met with that painful, suffocating silence, that is simply you falling off the bike. Hitting the ground isn't a lack of ability. It isn't a sign that you are somehow socially broken. Actually, scratch that. It's a strict, non-negotiable neurological requirement. Your brain literally needs the physical feedback of that awkwardness to map out new social dynamics. You have to wobble to learn. It is perfectly 100% okay to be messy while you're figuring it all out.
And honestly, I think this brilliantly illustrates a deeply comforting truth for all of us. Social skills just aren't innate. I really want to reassure you here, nobody is born with perfect social grace. Nobody pops out of the womb knowing exactly how to navigate a super crowded networking event or how to seamlessly read the subtle body language of a blind date. It is entirely a learned skill. Just like nobody is born knowing how to ride a bicycle. Sure, some people might have started practicing a bit earlier in life, but fundamentally, it requires practice, it requires patience, and it requires a willingness to look a little foolish while you learn the ropes.
But eventually, all of that messy practice leads to one crucial, game-changing breakthrough: balance. Notice how you might still look incredibly wobbly getting back up. Maybe your arms are flailing a bit, but critically, you are staying upright. This is the magic moment. This represents your brain finally taking all of that messy, awkward feedback from the wobble phase and figuring out the precise mechanics of balance. In social situations, this is exactly when you start to feel the actual rhythm of a conversation. You naturally learn when to speak, when to listen, how to hold eye contact without making it, super weird. You are finally finding your social balance.
So let's connect this physical metaphor all the way back to our ultimate cognitive goal. Because you actively pushed through that painful wobble phase, your brain has now internalized the balance. You no longer have to stare down at your feet while pedaling a bike. You can actually look around and just enjoy the scenery. Similarly, when you push through all that social awkwardness, you eventually reach a point where you unconsciously balance in conversations. You aren't trapped in your own head anymore, constantly overanalyzing every single word. You're just present. You're connecting smoothly with the other person, and you're just effortlessly enjoying the party.
So, I want to leave you with this final provocative thought to chew on. What wobble are you willing to endure today to build your social balance for tomorrow? Are you willing to finally embrace the awkwardness? Are you willing to put down the book, stop watching the screen for a moment, and actually get on the bike? Think about just one small social risk you can take today, knowing full well that you might fall, but also knowing it's literally the only way to eventually ride smoothly. If you learned something new, subscribe to the channel for building better habits through navigating Compass, and share your thoughts in the comments. I'd love to hear from you.